What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Koppai Podcast, episode 73. Sorry for a week off last week. I was feeling a little bit under the weather with cold or sore throat or just all sorts of bad, getting to the colder fall season. So I was feeling a little bit under the weather, so we didn't have an episode last week. But we're back with some discussion on the golden age of gaming this week. I am joined once again by Mr. Koppai himself, Zach Risk. You don't even know sometimes what noise or reaction you're supposed to have. One of these days, we just need to develop just an intro for you where maybe you just say hi back.
A normal one.
Yeah, just like, I'm joined by Mr. Koppai himself, Zach Risk. Oh, hey guys, what's up?
I think I have done that a few times.
Yeah, maybe the first few episodes.
It's always kind of awkward.
Yeah. I know I was a guest on a podcast once, and they're like, and we have Kaz Risk here, and I'm just like, hello. Never know what to do. I was watching Fireteam chat on IGN, that's their Destiny show, and Sean Finnegan's on there. He's a regular now. He was the video producer over at IGN, but now he's just a normal, I think host or something. And I don't know why, it's an inside joke with friends he has or something, but they call him the Shark, Sean the Shark Finnegan. And because of that, his little intro is always chop chop, he's a shark saying chop chop. And I think he feels a little bit self-conscious about it sometimes. I don't know, because I think it's more of a thing with his friends, but other people don't know what it is. So he's like, I want to say chop chop because that's my thing, but people don't really know what chop chop means. It's kind of like chop the morning to you or something. I don't know. And so the other week they were like, and we have Sean Finnegan, and he didn't say chop chop, but he didn't know what else to say, so he just looked at the camera and is like, hello everyone. And everyone in the show is kind of they just stop, what was that? So then the next week they were we're joined by Sean Finnegan, and he said very proudly, it was chop chop. And everyone's it's better than the cringy hello you said last week. So yeah, I think as long as it's whatever is most comfortable for you. If that's a weird Banjo-Kazooie noise that you just made, that's what
I don't even know what that was. But
if you guys want to, go ahead, write in, tweet at us, you could leave in the comment section or whatever you need to do.
Suggestions for me.
What should Mr. Koppai's intro be? Should it be random every week? Should it be relevant to the topic? Should it be just a normal hello? Hi, hello. Let us know down in the comments. I do want to pull up this week because it's weird. There's a lot that's happening in the Nintendo world with the SNES Classic, tons of indies coming out. But it's also, as far as big, headline news stories, it's a little bit on the lighter side as far as some big heavy hitter topics to discuss. Or, last episode we had the Nintendo Direct to talk about, which was a pretty big thing to unpack. And we probably actually could go back to that and unpack even more, but we're moving forward. And until Super Mario Odyssey comes out, we're kind of at another lull period. And so there's not a ton of big headliner stuff to get to besides, Golf Story's out. Let's talk about Golf Story. And so we actually have been playing a little bit of Cuphead. We're going to be talking about that today, our impressions of the game. And even though it's a PC and Xbox exclusive, I did do a little bit of poking around, and the developer has gone on the record to say that they actually own the IP. It wasn't like Microsoft owns the IP or Windows owns the IP. They own the Cuphead IP, and so we're going to talk about whether or not we think a port could happen. The developers have said that right now, for the time being, it's an exclusive to the current Xbox family of consoles, but you know how that is. So was Tomb Raider. So is PUBG for the time being, but we all know that PUBG is going to be coming to PlayStation eventually. There's all sorts of games that are these are exclusives because right now they're tied up in contracts. So we're going to talk about the possibility of Cuphead 1 coming to Switch, or the possibility of Cuphead growing into a franchise and coming to Switch, and maybe why you should check it out if you have a Nintendo Switch but also own either an Xbox or a PC gaming console. So we're going to be talking about that as well as some of the other things. But what brought me on this whole track was Noah Kenny, a loyal viewer and listener to the Koppai Podcast, wrote in with a few questions, and we've been pretty much pushing them aside week by week as we have, the Nintendo Direct and what was the other game that just came out? Like a pretty big game. Was it
SteamWorld Dig came out, and then
Yes.
Metroid also
Yeah,
came
Metroid
out.
we had a big topic about and stuff. So we've been talking about some pretty big things, and so I thought maybe we could even start off the show, if you want, Koppai on the fly, with some of Noah Kinney's questions and finally address those since he's been such a loyal listener. We don't have to dwell too long on them because some of them are pretty quick and easy. But for example, the first one is, do you think Ubisoft could make a brand new 3D Rayman game? If so, do you think they would make it for the Switch? And I think that's actually even just a good question. There's a recent news story that I think you had shared with me that the Ubisoft, is it Mulan?
Yeah,
Something
I
like,
believe so. Or maybe it's their French studio, something like
the
that.
studio in France or Europe or whatever are actually having a booming success after Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, hiring
just
on
sent that
more
today.
people than ever, and I think getting even more support from like the head Ubisoft headquarters than ever. And I've been playing actually tons of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and I'm enjoying that game a ton. I don't know what I was playing when it came out. I think maybe I was like pretty deep into Horizon and the Destiny 2 hype, but I've been playing it a lot on my way to work and my way to class and all of that as I've been going back to school here. And man, I've been getting really into that game. So I think Ubisoft is having a really good friendship with Nintendo right now. And if they could make a brand new 3D Rayman game, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the Rayman franchise. Do they have many 3D Rayman games? Or
I think so.
3D Rayman? I know the side-scrolling games are pretty extensive. Oh yeah, Rayman 3D for the 3DS. Does that mean 3D as in like 3D polygons, or is it 3D?
I don't know. I think they also released like on the Game Boy Advance, like a 3D one that was kind of like maybe one of those, kind of like when they did Spyro and some of those
Oh yeah,
isometric kind of top
I
down.
see some of that. There's some kind of, it looks kind of like Banjo-Kazooie looking Rayman games here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that franchise, but yeah, no, I don't know if Ubisoft would be going that direction. I think maybe they'd want to stick with maybe side-scrolling for Rayman, because that seems to be working pretty well with Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. And what's the one coming to Switch? Is that Origins or Legends?
Legends just came out, and I've been playing it, and it's amazing.
Is it pretty awesome? Nice.
Oh yeah, it's like on another level. I'd say it's just every experience I've had with it has been just as magical as, like I was describing Cuphead to you, being super magical. Rayman Legends is just, we take a lot of value in a game that's not only just brilliant gameplay wise, but also just packed with content when they just go overboard with the inspiration and just don't hold back in terms of putting like, Nintendo constantly does it with Mario games, where once you beat it, there's a whole almost a double game in harder levels and bonus things to do. And that's really what Rayman Legends seems to have, that. And since Origins was the prequel to it, especially if you haven't played Origins, it brings back like a whole bonus thing. I think it might just be a definitive edition thing, but since it's the price of a normal game, you get this whole thing where there's Rayman Origins levels, like 3/4 of the whole game is in Rayman Legends, and so.
Oh really? I was kind of bummed that Origins didn't come to the Switch. I'm like, I want to be able to play both. The
Yeah,
OCD
you get the definitive edition, and 3/4 of Origins is included in that also, so you get to just go back and.
What about the 1/4 that's missing?
They're kind of remixed. I think there was some special, because there's this new power-up thing in Rayman Legends, this guy that helps you get through stages. I'm not sure how it all works, but I think there was one of these power-ups in Origins that those levels are all removed, and I think those used maybe touchpad or something. Because Legends was on the Wii U and used the touchpad on these levels where this guy can like snip the ropes or move up a lever for you. You have this little companion, and so there's little things like that. But really, a majority of the game is there, and it has kind of the collectibles like Mario has, the coins, and stuff to collect. So each level has, I think there's probably 5 worlds from Origins that are in there, and then there's also like maybe 7 or 8 worlds in Legends itself.
Okay.
And then there's all these bonuses and challenges and multiplayer and daily and weekly challenges, and so it's packed.
Yeah,
full.
I think Noah, to answer your question, just like with really any game, like do you think such and such studio could make such and such game. I think it's really going to be, how much money people invest in these certain games for Switch. And so, like, we're obviously probably going to be getting a Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2 because of the success of Rabbids 1.
Yeah.
And depending on how well Rayman sells on the Switch, it's a little bit of a tricky situation with that because it's an older game. Like, isn't it pretty old? Like a few years now. In technology years, that's, quite a bit. And so it's a little bit tricky with that. Like with Dragon Ball Z, for example, it's like, oh, we'll bring fighters over if you guys buy Xenoverse 2. And it's like, what the crap? No way. I'm not buying Xenoverse 2 just to get this other thing. But there is a certain amount of merit to that where you have to vote with your wallet. And so do we think Ubisoft or such and such studio could bring any such and such game? I think it's really if the sales are there, they'll bring those games.
Well, I think since I didn't really get to answer the question, it's like if they make a 3D Rayman game, they're going to bring it to Switch, I feel.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Like,
it would even be like a Switch port. It would be developed,
right,
from the ground up with Switch in mind.
And to say if they will make one is, I think, anyone's guess. Yeah. Like, I really don't know. I don't see any clues heading towards that. And I've kind of heard that maybe, when that came out, when the 3D Rayman thing was like, like you mentioned Banjo-Kazooie, how it kind of looks like that. It was the Mario 64. Like, everybody was trying out the 3D arena and 3D platformers and maybe collectathons. But I think Rayman always kind of worked best because Rayman 1, like on the PlayStation, is basically like the Rayman Legends, only Rayman Legends is way kicked up in terms of its like speed and gameplay. It's really been modernized. It's a little bit slower on the original, but I just think that that's kind of the root of where Rayman is that 2D. So I'm thinking maybe it's not as comfortable for Rayman to be in a 3D environment, and maybe it just like you were kind of saying, it like sales wise everything seems to be working for this style that I wouldn't be surprised, and I would actually kind of personally rather them maybe go into like,
it's like Sonic. Like everyone wants Sonic Mania, they don't want Sonic Adventure or Sonic. Right? I guess people are clamoring for Sonic Adventure 3, but like the point is like people prefer 2D Sonic. It's actually kind of odd. I think people would love would obviously love new 2D Mario, but Mario is like one of the few platformers that I feel like people in a lot of ways prefer the 3D version, but for almost everything else, it's like people prefer the 2D counterpart in a lot of ways. But yeah, I know.
Well,
like with Metroid, for example, I think people are pretty pumped for obviously people are pumped for Prime 4, but in a lot of ways, I think people get more hyped for the 2D Metroids, and like even as much as people are hyped for Metroid Prime 4, I think people would be even super hyped for a completely from the ground up HD original, kind of Shovel Knight HD. Hive Jump, HD, or what's that?
I don't know.
Octopath Traveler 2D HD. Like I think people
maybe, but I don't know. It just seems the hype for like Prime games and the level of what Prime was over, and I think of like Zelda and stuff. If they released a new top-down 2D Zelda versus something like Breath of the Wild sequel, I think that people would be like, yeah, give me the Breath of the Wild sequel, please. Like I want that. And and then Mario's another example, and then I think games like Shovel Knight.
Although some people still hold Link to the Past way above Breath of the Wild, like I think a lot of people are still kind of like, nothing beats Link to the Past though. Like Breath of the Wild's fine and all, but then there's our people. It's kind of like that. There's the two camps there where is it Link to the Past or is it Breath of the Wild? Is it
maybe it's
Super Metroid or Metroid Prime? Like there's always the two camps there, and I think with Mario, usually people are like choosing between 64 or Galaxy or all of that before they're choosing between World and all of that. But I mean,
it's tough because a lot of people are also saying Mario 3 or World is their favorite Mario game of all time,
or Super Mario Maker.
It's tricky. Things like I was about to say Shovel Knight because people are like, don't go 3D too soon. The formula, we want a sequel in 2D before we go to 3D. Mm-hmm. Maybe go to SNES era or something before you go to like the full jump, because it feels maybe we haven't fully gotten what we need out of this.
I think they just hired on a 3D developer though, 3D designer.
Well, I have faith in them when they do go that route, but I would also, would have appreciated, I guess, if they maybe would have gone like more SNES
Yeah.
for the sequel or something, and then the third one be like finally in 3D. Like the third one for 3D is like Shovel Knight 3D or
Yeah.
perfect. But yeah, for Raymond, it kind of makes me think too, just how
Oh,
they seem to have perfected the gameplay of the platformer Legends and Origins. Maybe it is time for them to revisit the 3D, and they already have enough content in the 2D arena that it wouldn't really take away from people's. Wouldn't be too much of a risk, maybe, but you never know. But,
yeah. Noah Kenny's second question. This one can be a quick one. Do you think Nintendo could release a 4K add-on for Switch? I think Reggie's even gone on the record to say like that's not a priority at all. I think like maybe they could do a Switch Pro where it's 4K, but
yeah,
I think their priorities are more in just sticking with what they got.
yeah. I think they probably view 4K more as like VR, in that it's not something that a lot of people are adapting yet, and that it's not going to be something until probably 4 or 5 years in the future where it's actually most households are.
And that's what their focus is. They're focused completely 100% on what's like general consumer.
Yeah.
They're not looking too much like that hardcore. Like it needs to be 4K, 60.
And then the other fact of how much more it would take for the Switch to output to 4K, and how much it would be like a lot of games would probably be it's 720p 60 frames docked, 1080p 60 frames on a normal HD screen, and then 720 again on 4K or something, or even worse. It's like I don't know how much power extra it would need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know they have something. I heard like in the specs initially they said maybe it could stream in 4K or something, but
I remember that like originally, like way back when we were talking about NX leaks and stuff. It's like it can broadcast it can do Netflix streaming in 4K, but
there's also the possibility that way down the line we will get like with the new Nintendo 3DS where they add the NFC and make it kind of deluxe, like the best perfected version where in 4 years maybe it does. It's like now it has 4K and it's a little more powerful. It's the
go
Switch
back to Breath
Plus
of the Wild and now it's 4K. Like people are freaking out, like
HDR and stuff.
Yeah, HDR and 4K Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah.
Like melting your eyes just with how gorgeous it is. The next couple ones we're going to kind of glaze over because maybe we'll save them more for around Odyssey. The next one is, could Nintendo possibly garner the courage to add voice acting to Mario? I'm assuming because you and I were talking about this question before, and when we read Noah write it in, Mario already does have voice acting with Charles Martinet as the voice actor, but I'm assuming he's talking more so along the lines of like, what we got in Breath of the Wild, where there's full-on voice-acted cutscenes, Mario and Luigi talking to each other. And I guess they do kind of have those in the cartoons, but I think we saw a little bit of that with Sunshine, Mario Sunshine, like the opening cutscene in Flood. Your little backpack was always talking to you and was like full-on voice-acted cutscenes, and Baby Bowser or Bowser Jr. jumped out of his little thing and was like, "Don't take Mama Peach away from me again." Like, there was like a full-on cutscene story. So I think they've tried it and maybe didn't get the best response to it, because ever since they've kind of gone back to the generic wah 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 wah. But I think they could bring it back. Like maybe Odyssey has more to it than what we've seen, but it seems to be kind of generic. Meow 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 meow. So,
I don't know like maybe Pauline or something speaks.
I guess she has a whole song that she's like, Odyssey,
but
let's see. Or
let's
go or see.
I mean, I definitely trust Charles's ability, that if he did the full, I think that it'd be charming, and whatever they wrote would probably be fun, and I think that he'd do a great job. So I think the ability is there, and the potential. I don't think it's too much of a. I mean, I think the one thing with Mario is kind of with Link, they like to keep him kind of a silent protagonist that represents everybody. That. And so it's to give him, it's kind of the, what is it? Was it Other M? I never played, but it was the game where they tried to flesh out Samus with voice acting and a whole story that made her seem like totally ruined her character basically by kind of making her like, I don't know, depressed and uh really
Focusing, I think,
like
on her
weak
family's
maybe.
death, yeah, like her
Yeah,
parents' death, and I don't know. I need to
right.
play that though. I think the gameplay does look pretty awesome,
Yeah,
but I actually could not
but
get through Metroid Prime. I completely gave. I was like, I played through all of Zero Mission like in one night. Was so hyped, and I'm like, time for Metroid Prime. Went out and bought the trilogy, and now it's like,
but I yeah,
man, I cannot finish that.
but I almost wonder if it was a serious like thing that they took note of when Metroid did that and tried to go a little bit deeper, and they were just like, we can't, maybe we should just stick with what works by making remaining our keeping our protagonists to be silent
Yeah,
instead of adding all this complicated story to them that's really not necessary.
yeah,
So, although they did release the news that he's no longer a plumber, Mario. So,
yeah, and he has a gray hair now too in Odyssey. If you zoom into his head, he has one little gray hair, so he's on his way
aging.
out. Yeah. Meanwhile, Sonic is younger than ever, so watch out.
Yeah.
And then, the next one is, do you have any ideas for a new 2D Mario game? We'll have to save that for another time. Whole topic of the show to discuss there. And then finally, I think this is kind of even leading to our main topic of the show with the golden age of gaming. Noah Kenny writes, the Switch is huge with people this year, but do you think it could possibly get even bigger next year since they'll have an entire year next year? And that kind of goes into our topic of, since our last episode, we've had the SNES Classic come out. We've had Golf Story, SteamWorld Dig 2, the Rayman just came out. We have Odyssey this upcoming month. We have, Pokken Tournament just came out a little bit ago. We have, what is it this month? Also on the Switch. It's not Wolfenstein, but Doom is coming out this season. We have Wolfenstein next year. We have Skyrim in November. Xenoblade in December. We've had a whole year this past year, and next year we have we have Kirby and Yoshi and Fire Emblem and Fire Emblem Warriors this year. Like, it's just a huge year of golden time of gaming, including the indies I just mentioned. And we have other indies that we haven't even been able to talk about or mention. Like, when we first started off, the Switch kind of season of Koppai, we were always mentioning, like, every week what games are coming out, because it was kind of like a big celebratory deal of, like, what's the game this week? Like, let's go pick up, Little Inferno and get all hyped for the new Neo Geo games coming. And now it's way too much, that we're just like, whatever. Like, there's no way we can buy all these games now. It's like, I think it was 15 new games this past week was like what Kotaku wrote. Like, here's the 15 new games coming to Switch this week. It's like just way too many. But at the same time, it's like awesome because you and I are playing lots of games lately and getting into it, and it's just like there's so much to play, whether it's PlayerUnknown's Battleground or Mario plus Rabbids, or even kind of pulling out Zelda and still finding the remaining shrines. And so we were kind of we're wondering what to talk about this week specifically with there's so many games to tackle. Personally, I didn't tackle or play Golf Story. I've heard tons of great things, but I wonder how you want to go about talking about it. But we did pick up Cuphead.
Yeah.
And I think some good things to talk about with Cuphead in kind of relation to the golden age of gaming is kind of what makes this game stand out and how we could like to see it maybe be incorporated on the Switch, whether it comes to Switch. I think it could be right at home, but also maybe how even other Nintendo franchises can adapt to it, and maybe how other games can adapt to this kind of style moving forward, because people are kind of describing it as like the Dark Souls of 2D platforming. But I think one of the things that makes it so charming and the reason you want to keep playing it is because it has like that Dark Souls, old school Mega Man difficulty, but with just so much charm and color and fun music that you don't really get frustrated. Like, that's kind of thing that's a bummer about maybe Bloodborne or Dark Souls or Demon Souls, is not only are those games challenging, but they just start to wear on you like emotionally, because it's just like blood and demons just coming at you. But this game, like, when you die, your little character just has a little spirit float up out of his little cup head, and it's gorgeous. And I think it's very Nintendo styled, and the fact that it puts art style and gameplay first and foremost above everything else, and because of that, everything else follows. And for those of you that maybe don't know, because this is a Nintendo show, and this is not a Nintendo game as of yet. Cuphead just came out this past week, or on Friday, if you're listening to this, just a few days ago. For now, it's a Microsoft console exclusive, but it is available on PC and coming to Mac eventually. And it's basically, it was originally designed as kind of just a boss battle challenge game, where you just were going from boss battle to boss battle fighting, and they're supposed to just all be super hard, but it's done in the art style of like Felix the Cat, old school 20s cartoons, where, you know, I don't even know how to describe it. You'd have to just watch one of those cartoons to kind of see it, like old school Mickey Mouse. Everything's hand drawn. It kind of has some
Looney
of that.
Tunes.
Yeah, Looney Tunes. Kind of, what's the word? Color, like abrasion or something, where, like, you know what I'm talking about? Where like the text, for example, when people talk to you, like above it, it's kind of red, and below it's kind of blue, like it's kind of blurry, you know?
Yeah.
Like that chromatic abrasion or whatever. Or just like, it's as if you're watching it like on an old CRT, or not even that, like older than that, because there's like the film, like crispy sound over all of it. So it's just a game oozing with charm. It's been in development for 3 years, because it originally was kind of that boss battle challenge mode, but then as the game in development, you know, got more attention and had more time invested into it, they started to develop, you know, levels in between the boss battles and kind of make it an overall narrative. And that's where we're at now. It's averaging about 90 on Metacritic, and it's just an awesome game. And so I thought we could talk about it. And maybe I was thinking, you know, while we were preparing for the show, what Nintendo franchise could maybe take, you know, some pointers and tips from Cuphead, because it is such a fun, challenging game. But I honestly don't really know. Like, I was thinking Mega Man, but
I kind of was talking to you last night and pointed out one that I thought would be like absolutely perfect for the Cuphead sort of theme, and that was Yoshi. You know, they do the great job with like the yarn aesthetic, or even Yoshi's Island with kind of the pastel hand drawn looking thing that Miyamoto wanted to do to kind of counter Donkey Kong Country. It seems like if they went even more hand drawn, where everything was literally animated, you know, by hand. I don't know, I was about to say hand by hand.
Frame by frame. Several hands all contributing to this one project.
One hand after the other. Yeah,
you just walk by the desk and at your...
But I was thinking too, like, Yoshi could use his eggs almost like a power up, kind of in relation to how Cuphead uses, I don't know what it is, he's like firing out of his finger, but you could use the eggs as a propeller, or as a sort of gun device. And I was thinking they could make a Yoshi's game that's more adult, not like in theme where it's, you know, pushing adult elements or anything, but just adult in the difficulty, to kind of bring the franchise something that's, when, you know, it's been getting kind of lower reviews in the Yoshi's New Island and even Yoshi's Woolly World. While it looks beautiful, it maybe, you know, got some people saying, oh, it's still kind of that easy thing. Like Yoshi's Island, nothing's ever really lived up to that. And I think if they went with this aesthetic, it would kind of harken back to the Yoshi's Island style, and kind of separate itself maybe a bit from the new 3D Yoshi's. Ever since Yoshi's Story, I think, is when people were like, oh, what's happening?
I'm trying to.
But they do have a new Yoshi game coming out, so I wouldn't really expect it to be anytime soon. But maybe after that, they could do something like that. But I would also suspect it's pretty far-fetched that they would actually do that style, make it difficult, kind of in the same vein as Cuphead. But, you know, I thought that would probably be a perfect franchise for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what's Nintendo's like hardest franchise? Like, what's the franchise that Nintendo's known for, or that like has the hardest difficulty? Like, I would think
Metroid, probably.
Yeah, Metroid or Donkey Kong, I always know, like, is kind of like the harder platformer. Like, Kirby is baby's first platformer, then Mario is like the everyman platformer, and then Donkey Kong would probably be, you know, the leaning towards the pro, not like pro as in like, you know, your MLG at Evo doing your Donkey Kong runs, but just like that's a little bit on the harder side.
Mario Lost Levels.
Yeah, I was thinking like Mario Lost Levels, or, you know, like what they could do with that.
I mean, Mario would totally fit the style well, because his whole design is very inspired by like Mickey Mouse, you know, the kind of him and Sonic, the classic mascots. that an entire game, if they went back in the 2D style, like everybody's been kind of wanting them to go
Well, like
back
we
into a
always see
world
with
style.
Mario, like what is it where like on Super Mario 3D World, like the stickers, like that style of Mario where he's like hand drawn and
Yeah.
kind of vector based, like he's poking out of the circle and it's like his icon, and like what they always use for like manual tutorials and all that, like where he's shooting the fireball. Like they have so much of that hand drawn Mario. We've never seen
Yeah,
a game
I was
with
just
that.
thinking of that. They should totally make it where it's like you're playing the Super Mario World manual or something. Where
Yeah,
it's all hand,
man.
it's all hand drawn, and it's like they wanted it to be at that time, but they had to use the SNES's limitations. But now you could
Mm-hmm.
actually do a frame by frame, hand by hand
Because I've been,
Super Mario World that
yeah.
is beautifully animated, super crisp,
And you're
60
shooting
frames a second.
fireballs maybe, or you're
Oh,
shooting all of that, like,
it'd be perfect.
and yeah, make it kind of like just this old school hand drawn art style where it's just like, you know, it doesn't have to be the whole, Cuphead can get a little extreme as far as, the filters they have over top, like it's flickering
Yeah.
constantly, and there's crackles and scratches on the screen, like it's
Yeah, it's
really.
really like like old time 20s, and maybe we're like back in 1912 or something. Like,
Yeah, like this could be a little bit more modern than that. But like I'm thinking of like even Wonder Boy, the game I was playing where you can switch back and forth between pixel art style and
yeah,
the hand
I thought
drawn.
of that too. Like the kind of flash
Yeah, yeah,
animation that,
Flash.
but maybe not quite as flashy. Somewhere in between
Yeah.
Cuphead and that flash would be, I think, a perfect. I mean, just literally doing it, not with any of that special screen flickering effect, but just like we said, the manual from Super Mario World, just brought to life,
Hmm.
actually playing. One of the manuals animated, not going. It would be able to go back to that style, but skipping the new Super Mario Bros. And do something maybe different.
Yeah, because that's always the thing is I don't like that new Super Mario Brothers style. Like I
Yeah,
always
it's a
just
little too
wish.
plastic and
Yeah.
shiny.
And it's just weird that we don't really have a Nintendo game that has that kind of Flash style that I can think of. Um, it's I think it's more of a modern style. Like we haven't really seen it really till this latest generation as far as games that are using that. But Cuphead is just perfect with it. Like they nail it. And then yeah,
Hmm.
Wonder Boy was what I was thinking of, and I'm trying to think of many other examples. Um, but it's just I think maybe something about it, like I don't know like what kind of meetings they have and the marketing terms and the risk reward sort of focus groups that they have, where what if Flash looks too cheap sometimes, like if it's like supposed to be like if 3D like does better with groups, if it's like, oh, I love a 3D game compared
I
to
think
like
it
a.
does. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
which is always so bizarre.
I remember, I think it was like Howard Stern or something that was approached about making an animated show, and they were like, "We're gonna do it in Flash," and he's like, "I don't want to do that Flash crap." Like they were like, "Look at this show; it's done entirely in Flash." He's like, "It doesn't look right. It looks like cheaper than." Like a real show. Like I want to do like a real animated show. And, I think that is you can kind of take that maybe as what a lot of people may feel is when they notice, especially like a TV show and stuff,
Hmm.
maybe for things like, My Little Pony and Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that, that are done in Flash. And now they're getting so much better, like Adult Swim cartoons and stuff.
Yeah.
They do a lot of Flash animation and they're getting a lot better. So maybe,
Hmm.
that was 5, 10 years ago. Now Flash has gotten to a point, but there's still, I think, a perception, and maybe Nintendo being kind of one of those companies that's like really goes for professionalism in their design. And, that's why I think it would be literally hand drawn and not probably made in. That's why it would be an in between that
Hmm.
kind of has that style, but just a little bit crisper than the grainy effects and everything from Cuphead, but kind of towards that polish and that really almost too. It's too crisp with the Flash designs sometimes, and a little too thick on like the stroke the
Yeah.
stroke thickness and stuff.
And
It's
I
like,
think one of the things I just realized that like I think can make Flash seem so cheap right now is because you have those people that are messing it up and adding too thick a stroke, and like the colors are flat, like they don't, like that's the nice thing about Cuphead too, is like maybe it's because the everything's kind of constantly moving because the strokes are shifting as the hand drawn kind of does that scribble effect. But they're also like, even looking back at some of the screenshots I took of playing the game the other day, like a puff of smoke in the game will have the puff of smoke, but then the bottom of the puff of smoke cloud will have like a different shade of gray, and eyes kind of have a little bit of a glaze to them. Like there's just extra depth and color to everything that
yeah,
normally Flash artists don't add. And I think another reason is because all that Flash stuff is super easy to make on a website like Newgrounds, or places like that where people can contribute their own games and they just make them out of Flash. And maybe that's why it looks so cheap, is we just have that association with like free to play online web based games, like
yeah,
Flash based games. And so if Nintendo were to come out and be like, hey, we have an entirely new Mario game that's 2D and it's all made out of like hand drawn Flash animation, it's like the perception is, oh, that's cheap and lazy or whatever, compared to like doing a 2.5D game. But then when you look at it, if it can meet Cuphead standards, like, oh my gosh, it would be insane. And so yeah, I think Mario, like, not to be like a lazy answer, but the Mario is kind of the best suited thing for that Cuphead formula. Like the platforming would be on point, like doing double jumps in the air, and
Well, and I think a whole bunch. I think Metroid, to be fair, would also be another really great one because of, I think of in the Game Boy Advance especially, they added those little cutscenes where everything is kind of sketched in a comic book almost fashion. And if
Yeah.
they did another 2D Metroid and didn't try to, like, I think that almost would have been more effective on the 3DS than what they try to do, where the anti-aliasing and some of the pixelation is a little more obvious.
Yeah.
By going a little more stylized, it'd be a little more timeless, and they could still do 3D effects and everything with that style. Like you can see with Rayman,
Yeah,
it has,
Rayman's a great example of like that hand drawn look,
right.
where it's like side scrolling in 2D, but it's not pixel art and it's not like cheap Flash. Like it's just
Yeah.
that's I don't even know why I didn't bring that up when I was listing all the examples.
But
Yeah, I
I
think
can imagine Samus like hand drawn and kind of a sketchy and everything, and all the Metroids and the boss battles being hand drawn, like Ridley, and that'd
yeah.
just be really awesome.
Yeah, kind of like like a comic book sort of
Because then they
vibe.
also they love to with Metroid give out the like the concept art booklets and stuff, and there's a lot of just really awesome sketches of Samus and the enemies that are really well drawn, and to see that brought to life would be really, really awesome. So I think Metroid also,
and Metroid has, or Samus has, like all those weapons at her disposal, kind of like Cuphead has a bunch of shifting weapons. And the premise of Cuphead, like in this kind of challenging platform, and the Dark Souls formula works really well when you can have unique bosses. And like I don't think Mario's super known for that. It's usually just Bowser at the end of a castle. Like it's not, Mario's not known for the boss battles. It's known for the levels.
Yeah.
But Metroid could be known for the boss battles, like where it's the different alien creatures and the Metroid infested, monsters on the planets that you go to, and you can even be going planet to planet.
Well, and speaking of boss battles, I think one other final title that I'd say would work really well is probably Zelda, and I'd love to see them see if they could do something that's the Cuphead style of hand drawn, but an actual. We've seen them with Wind Waker do the cell shaded that kind of does that, or even in Breath of the Wild, it's a little more stylized. To see them actually go into a 3D open world that was like playing an anime or playing, literally playing a cartoon or one of these old style things. I mean, I know a lot of people kind of want Zelda to try to go as realistic as possible, just because that just seems really cool. Like to get it as like ultra realism Zelda. But I think
then you realize that everyone's freaky looking when they're
Skyward Sword. I forgot to mention because I haven't really played much of that, but they did really like push the beautiful, almost hand drawn effect or watercolor, that kind of thing. So I think Zelda already is built with that tradition of trying out really beautiful, really pushing the art, and again doing a lot of the concept art that's just breathtaking and trying to go for making it like a almost real life Van Gogh painting or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
really, Nintendo would be. I think that's why they mesh so well. This Cuphead game, and it's probably why when it was announced, we were kind of gravitated towards it. Is this looks amazing because it just
Yeah.
has that Nintendo kind of charm and relation
Yeah.
automatically. That it's kind of like it seemed to be a real snag for Microsoft when they announced it strong.
People are buying Xboxes over it.
Yeah.
Like it's a game that like I don't think it would probably take too much processing power on your PC. It's a game that if you are a Nintendo fan is like right at home with Nintendo fans. It's perfect platforming. It feels good. That was my actually biggest concern is I thought I had heard going into it that it was kind of clunky platforming, that maybe hitboxes were too sensitive or that like your jumps were too heavy. Maybe it was like at early E3 showings, but it feels just like where I jump and dash and parry, Cuphead moves, like it's just the perfect thing of you're playing the game, and it's always good when you have a super challenging game that the reason you mess up is because you messed up, like you hit the wrong button, you goofed, you had a brain fart or whatever the case may be, and that's why you died.
Although I had that crazy glitch. Did you see that video I sent you?
Oh no, it wasn't loading on my phone when you sent it, but
I had a perfect run, and at the very end of the run, it decided to just he went into a little ball and started spinning like Sonic, and then just moved, like floated over to the left of the screen and just kept spinning, and I couldn't move him or do anything. I got a perfect run, and then after that, I couldn't get the perfect run again.
Dang,
I tried it like 10 and 15 more times, and I'm like, but
send that in, get your money back.
Get my money back.
Like, dude.
But that's the only time where it's been really like that is. I mean, there's been maybe one time where one of those little roller bugs or something bounced, and I was like, oh, that felt cheap or something.
Yeah,
but that happens in every game where it's like, oh, that shouldn't have happened, maybe.
Yeah.
Like that. But otherwise, it's really like the hitboxes and everything. I've felt I've had some really close dodges and saves, and so everything seems really precise and really well designed, and I'm sure for things like the random spinny glitch that'll be patched out eventually.
Yeah, brand new game.
And I should send that maybe to them just in case nobody else does, but I would assume maybe somebody else will figure it out.
That's always the thing though. People assume like, oh, this glitch will get taken care of, and it never gets fixed because no one ever sent it in. Yeah, we have it's October. So that means this month it's Odyssey month, and it's fall. People are doing Halloween stuff. It's the start of the big fall. I mean, this has been probably one of the greatest years as gaming. We've got Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, Destiny 2. We were going to be getting Red Dead Redemption 2, but we did just get a trailer for that. We got Cuphead. We're getting a new 3D Mario game. We got a Splatoon sequel. It's a crazy, crazy year, and now we're entering the fall season with a new Star Wars game. One of the biggest Call of Duties, like most anticipated Call of Duty games, like with World War II. It's a big year, and we're about to just get right into it. And so pardon us if we're talking about some other big games outside of Nintendo in the coming weeks, just because there's going to be so much to talk about. We just got to do it. But Cuphead was one that we had to bring to everyone's attention because it's just, man, what a great game. $20 too. And to replay each level and try to get the perfect A+ score, or apparently there's like an S score out there. We don't know how to get that right now. Maybe there's like an end game sort of thing where you can go back and beat it, or you just have to be like, I don't know, super quick or something, like maybe we're just not getting fast enough, like you got to get like right within seconds or whatever of the perfect time. I don't know, but it's one of those classic Nintendo fashion games of getting the perfect score, finding all the coins. That's where the game length really comes in, and even just plowing through it, you'd probably have a blast and get your $20 worth. So definitely go check that out if you can. But if you are sticking with your Switch or your 3DS, tons of great games to play. Golf Story is getting tons of great reviews. And there is also a little update with the Minecraft Better Together update. Apparently that'll be coming out soon. It's out with everything else.
I think I had actually a dream about that. that it was out and that we were playing it.
Oh, and another thing that's really awesome, just
And
some
then it didn't
completely
look quite as good as the like the other ones. Like they had added some of the effects and stuff, like the nice sunset, the cool like
yeah.
lighting effects, but it was a little bit like I don't know, it was just not the same. I don't know why, but that was how my dream went. I don't know if that's accurate of how it will actually be, but
Yeah. And the other
but
thing I was going to say is that thanks to everyone's outcries, Snake Pass will be changing its icon back to its normal
no
icon.
way.
Yeah. You didn't hear about
Wow.
that?
No, I sent them so many tweets about that. I was like, yo, I'll maybe go back and play your game if you ever change your icon. And then like the next day I would go and tweet them again. I'd be like, hey, it's really uncool of you guys that you haven't changed that icon. Like everybody else is changing it. Like, why are you being so stubborn?
The
And I
developer
was like,
responded with, quote, "We've definitely taken the feedback on board and will be changing the icon back with the next update, which is due early next year. It'll mean that the branding isn't unified, but our focus is on our players and community, so we're okay with that." End quote. But yeah, apparently the icon...
branding isn't unified. What?
Because apparently that's like their main icon across PlayStation, Xbox, PC. Like that's their Snake Pass logo icon for any sort of game or application.
It's
And
bad.
yeah, and they're like, we don't want to break the branding, and that's why they kept it on Switch for so long. But they're like, all right, it means we won't be unified, but we're gonna change it back. And it's like they should take this as a hint that this is the way it should be. But I think that means we need to shift our focus to Human Resource Machine, because that game has just a little man holding
I
up the
know.
green block, which is
Yeah, that's the
terrible.
worst. Yeah.
I may like hide that from my system, when I'm not playing it, just because
Yeah,
it
I
looks
keep
so
it.
bad.
I keep it low.
Yeah. And the other would be, I think Sonic Mania really needs to get its act together and
Yeah.
add in Knuckles and Tails and just add Sonic Mania to the title. Like, hopefully in a year. I mean, sure, there'll be, just like PlayStation games still don't know how important a platinum trophy is. This is the Switch's deal, is the icon. Like, hopefully developers
Yeah.
know within a year, like, you
And with
guys
how
got to get the icon right.
with how hip Sonic is, it's kind of surprising with the social media and everything that they are just not on it. That they kind of neglected to, be. It seems like they're always ahead of the curve a bit. That they
Yeah.
know what's up, but they're like, nah. I
Sonic
almost
Mania
thought
nailed it in every other
seemed
regard
like-
except for their icon. It's just surprising. Yeah.
I almost seem like Nintendo's like, here's your guidelines, and they're like, we poop on your guidelines.
Yeah, Sega's like, nah. But yeah,
But
no.
also, Axiom Verge is coming out in a few days. I'm really excited to maybe pick that up on the Switch.
Oh, yeah.
Bulgar the Viking also comes out on the 5th, which is pretty interesting. I played a little bit of that, and that's another one of those tough as nails, kind of Shovel Knight style. Like, actually, it's really in the style. I don't know if you remember way back in the day at Dad's, he had this old game on a floppy disk that you could go like two directions, and it was like an old platformer, kind of Contra almost like, but it's very similar to like an old DOS game. That's those old DOS platformers where they're really, really hard. There's a lot of almost Dungeons and Dragons inspirations from it, where you're this it's Volgar the Viking, so you're this long-haired blonde Viking, tough, muscly guy.
Thor.
That's going through and just, I think, using almost a Castlevania like chain or something to go through and destroy enemies. But it's really difficult, and it seems like a really perfect game for the Switch. I was surprised to see that it's coming out. I don't remember it on any of like the indie announcements, but
Yeah, we'll have to talk about Axiom Verge, because I do own that already on PlayStation. Sorry,
Oh, yeah.
Nintendo, but it took too
Yeah.
long. But yeah,
and
no,
Yono and the Celestial Elephants is coming out on the 12th, which is, I'm really, really hyped for that game. That's the game that looks like Zelda, like Link to the Past styled Zelda, only it's you're an elephant. And
Yeah,
these
the big ears or something.
Yeah. And so that looks really, really charming and awesome. I'm excited to see how that's received, if it's any decent. But it just looks like really awesome. So
Yeah.
excited for that. This month is just awesome. Like, I just feel games are coming out to the Switch like crazy.
It's too
They're
much.
quality games. Like a lot of, I mean, there is some games that are like, what? Why is this coming? But otherwise, there's so much quality that's in there that it's not just like it's just shovelware that bowling and some cheap racing game is coming. It's a good majority of them are really solid titles, and they're really good priced. So really awesome to see the Switch get so much support. It
Yeah.
feels like developers, I think we talked about it in a previous episode, where they are feeling like they can get more attention and more notice since it's a new platform. There's not as much competition. They can, if they have a decent game, they can maybe rise to the top of the charts on the Switch and have a good
Yeah, definitely.
way to advertise
yeah,
their game.
I think, I don't know what studio it was, with maybe Oceanhorn, where like it sold more on Switch than every other console combined.
Yeah,
like
and then all
including
these other
mobile.
developers like the Wonder Boy people and all these others
Yeah,
came out.
everyone's
and said,
saying
like,
that about their game. Like it's just it's selling best on Switch, so that's why they need to bring Cuphead to Switch.
Yes,
Wrap
they
the
do.
whole show
And I would
up.
buy it again, probably.
I definitely would just play it on the Switch, have it on the go.
Yeah.
If they like add DLC and do a definitive edition, but sounds unlikely, which is the unfortunate part of everything. But it's not impossible. But
Not impossible.
don't be like, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'll just wait till it comes to Switch. Like, no, just go ahead and get it now. Support them. See what you can do to help it out. If you have the ability to buy the game, the console, whatever the case may be, go ahead and go grab it. But yeah, that's Koppai Podcast episode 73. We'll be back next week with, I don't know what. It's another week of Nintendo. More impressions of these indies.
No,
Yono.
that's not 12.
Well, the topic of the show on Yono, the elephant. No, we'll be probably talking about
Volgar the Viking.
Yeah, that'll be our show next week. But until next time. Bye.